show in October. You believe we are now, what, 30, 31, 32 shows in on this lunch conversation with Randy and Teddy. I'm Randy Wooden.
And I am Teddy Burriss, Mr.
Burriss is there. We started the show back in April with the idea, the intent to have a little fun, to share maybe some tips and advice and encouragement for job hunters, as so many people lost their job or were stranded at home, and many still are due to COVID. And as a result, one thing led to another. We've been fortunate to have so many guests come on to talk about a ton of job-related topics, not just the interview and the resume and everything else, but also professional development and very interesting things as well that play in our personal and business lives. So lots of stuff to talk about. We have future guests coming up, and if you've got ideas for future guests, we'd love to hear that. But I run our professional center here in Goodwill of Northwest North Carolina. We're free. It's my full-time job. I help job hunters all across the country, all industries and ages and so forth. So if you know somebody that could use some help, by all means, we're easy to find. We're on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm out there, Randy Wooden. Let me turn it over to Teddy.
And we're live on Facebook. Yep. I just checked it, dog. So it's all, you'll grab that puppy now.
Let me grab that. And also,
I'll take it.
We've got people that are already tuned in. Let us know where you're watching us from. We see Steve on here. So just go ahead in the chat box. I'll monitor that. And Teddy, have at it.
So I'm Teddy Burriss. I'm a LinkedIn strategist. I work for a company called Burriss Consulting. I love what I do. And my buddy Randy and I have been helping people on job search for many, many years. And we decided to do this show to have fun and help others. Yep. That's why we do it. And today I want to just be thankful for our our sponsors. We're really grateful that today Brookmead Holdings is our sponsor. Brookmead is a career coach organization, professional development, outplacement services. And so thank you to all those good people at Brookmead for sponsoring us. We're appreciative of that. Our special guest today, Randy, I think I transitioned well, buddy. Our special guest today is Blanca Cobb, and Blanca is a body language expert. I met Blanca years ago. I can't remember where. I mean, we our tribes overlap all over the place. So it had to be in downtown Winston somewhere. So, but Blanca, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Randy loves to know this, Blanca. If you could introduce yourself to our audience, that we're up to 30,000 people now. And when you're introducing yourself to the audience, tell us how you got into what you do, would you?
Sure, that is a long, long story, but I will give you an abbreviated version. Hi, everyone, I'm Blanca Cobb. I'm an internationally known body language expert. I've been doing this for about 8 years now. I got into the business, one just by chance, and the other I don't even know how to answer this question, so I'm going to bounce around a little bit. So when I was a little girl, I was always paying attention to signs, and I didn't realize until I was an adult looking back on my life what I was really doing. And I did not have a very happy childhood. And I was looking for cues when people would get upset, listening to changes in the tone of voice or changes in body language, from facial expressions to someone reaching for a belt or those types of cues. And again, I didn't know what in the world I was doing until I was an adult. And then as an adult, I happened to see a video clip about somebody who was promoting their body language book and was teaching body language. And I'd always thought that kind of stuff was like for the CIA or the FBI. I didn't realize like everyday people like myself could actually use it, and then how you could use it. So I was so fascinated and so intrigued. And that's how that started. And I have a master's degree in psychology. And so I've just blended the two. And so now what I do is I give a lot of advice on how to use body language, and then also detecting deception. And so what that is figuring out possible hot spots. If someone isn't leveling with you, if they're lying to you, these are important skills. So many times we concentrate on somebody else. Are they telling us the truth? Do they like us? Are they interested in what we're saying? but you're not thinking about yourself and what you bring into that conversation, because people are going to feed off of you. So this happens in your personal relationships with your partner, with your kids, with your parents, and then professionally, right? In interviews and colleagues and bosses. So the whole life is just relationships. And I'm all about relationships because we can't have life without a relationship.
I get it. I get it. And it's not unusual that we take our childhood experiences and our pre-adult teenage experiences, and then we go off and study this other stuff. And it just starts to align in some way to create often something pretty cool and fun and enjoyable and rewarding.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. By the way,
Rewarding.
I saw you say rewarding in a very emphatical way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, that light bulb moment, when other people get that light bulb moment and realize that they can read people and understand people better, and also understand themselves better, the difference that it makes in their own life and in their own relationships. I mean, that is pretty powerful. Reading body language is like a superpower that people don't even realize. And the biggest thing is people think that you can't do it, but you do it subconsciously and you don't even realize it.
That's the view. I'm with you there. We don't realize that we're doing that. So Blanca, the 35,000 people who showed up today, many of them, maybe not all of them, but many of them are job seekers, which means they have to engage with people in interviews. So they've got to sit down with someone and they've got to present themselves in an interview. Can you speak a little bit about, maybe the both sides of that body language? How can I make sure I'm presenting myself trustworthy and honest and sincere, and maybe a little bit about how they can interpret what that other person's thinking? Is that fair to ask?
Oh, absolutely. But I have a question before I answer your question. Is this virtual or this is in person?
So, hey, those of you who are on here, how many of you just use the chat box, drop in the chat box and let us know if you had in real life interviews lately, face to face, kneecap to kneecap, same room, same air. Blanca, I think it's predominantly virtual.
Okay.
But
well, then.
I'm getting 2 virtual so far. I got somebody did both virtual. So I think it's predominantly virtual. Yes.
All right. Well, let's do virtual. Okay. Well, one, you said something interesting, and I'm not sure you even realize it. You said when you sit down to talk to somebody, when you're virtual, you don't actually have to sit down. I'm standing. For 99% of the time that I'm on TV, whether on video like I am right now, or whether I'm actually doing a news segment virtually, I stand. So I say this for a reason, because a lot of times people feel like you have to sit down, and you don't. The thing is, you have to be comfortable. That's the issue, because when you're more comfortable and you're more relaxed, then what's going to happen? Your body language is going to be relaxed. Your facial expressions are going to be relaxed. There's not going to be a lot of tension. So it's even the setup, Teddy. So before you even sit down or stand up for that virtual call, then also you want to have distance. Some people will do this. They'll get wicked close to that camera. And it's like, whoa, like I'm just bumping into the wall myself. It's like, whoa, it's too much. You want to get that space, and you do. So you have to think about it. It's almost like going to mimic real life. Like if you're in person, you don't want to get too close. So you want to have a good enough distance. And then I always say that you should be back far enough so someone can see your face, but also a lot of your upper body and how you move your hands. And that's important, because in real life, we're just not looking at somebody like this, like a bobblehead. And you can also read more. So you can read from top of the head to the fingertips of what you can see in a camera. And you want to make sure that you're comfortable. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people make on virtual is that they're not looking at the camera. They look at the screen. So I've been looking at the camera the whole time. So now I'm going to direct my attention to you, Teddy, and I'm looking at you. But anyone who's looking at me right now, they're like, what is she looking at?
Yeah.
When you look directly in the camera, you're making an impact. You're sending a message to that one person who's watching. And there, like you said, there could be 30,000 people watching right now, but me looking at that camera, I'm making a connection with every single person, because when I'm talking, it's me to you, that one person, even though I might be reaching more than that one person. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I struggle with that, Blanca, because I had a standing desk for 2 years. I loved my standing desk. I redesigned my office to make it so I can record videos every day, all day long. And I put my table back down. I want to raise it back up. I want my standing desk back now, which means I got to make changes to do it. But I'm going to freaking do it because I'm with you. You've got to be comfortable so that you present appropriately. And I'm with you. It's hard, but we have to talk to the camera.
Absolutely. It's no different. And visualize this. It's like if I were to be seeing you person to person right now, if I wasn't looking you in the eye and we're face to face, you'd be like, what's wrong with her? Why is she looking down and around and looking over my shoulder? It would give an impression that you're not trying to make. When you're in a job interview, you want to nail, you want to ace that job interview, right?
Can you say that louder one more time?
When you're in a job interview, you want to ace that job interview. You want to nail that job interview. So it's not only what you say, it's how you say it and how you present yourself that makes an impact. It's that first impression. You have like milliseconds sometimes before somebody judges you. And look, yes, I know people can say, Blanca, we're not supposed to judge people. And you're absolutely right. But
we do.
The big but here, right? People judge people all the time. Yeah. So use the tips I'm giving you to your advantage to set the best first impression that you can. So again, when you're comfortable, you're going to make the other person comfortable. And then you want to, people are like, what do I do with my hands? I don't know what to do with my hands. People get nervous. They'll start playing with their cuticles. They might be tapping on the table. They're not sure what to do. Look, I say, have them just by your side, just hang there. And you want to make sure that you have the natural curvature of their fingers. You don't want it straight like this. What does that say? Or this, or your fingers all twisted, because that's tension. It's the naturalness, the natural curvature that lets somebody know that you're feeling relaxed. And then when you're watching, this goes to the other part of your question, when you're watching somebody else, you want to use your peripheral vision as much as you can, right? So when they're talking, you want to look into the camera, but sometimes you might look down on occasion, and that's okay. The thing is, because you're not robotic, right? You're not going to do this the whole entire time. But when you're looking down, you want to see that they're relaxed. You want to see, are they tilting their head as if they're listening? Are they looking at you? Is there tension in their forehead or their eyebrows? When people pinch their eyebrows a little like this, normally that indicates that they're questioning something you said. Not necessarily if it's truthful. It could be like, oh, I haven't thought about that. Or, oh, wait, I'm confused. I'm not sure what you're saying. So it can have more than one interpretation. So you have to really look at the context in which these body language changes are happening. And then when you start talking, do people lean in? Sometimes people will even lean in a little bit to get like even closer to you. So again, they're not going to get right up to the camera, but they might lean forward just a little bit. Or are they starting to turn their shoulders away or their face away from you? Normally that's a disconnect. And you have to think about, what just happened? What was a conversation? What was a question that was just being asked that might make someone a little uncomfortable to turn? I'm going to tell you right now, one of the biggest mistakes so many people make is they see a negative body language and they automatically think, that person's lying to me. They're holding something back. That may or may not be true because there is no Pinocchio effect. It could be what you said might have triggered a thought for them or a story for them, something that's happened in the past or something that's unrelated to you. Sometimes people are like, this is so fascinating, but I got like another 10 minutes. Can they hurry up? You have to be careful not to mind read, because when you mind read and you mind read incorrectly, then you can really sabotage a potentially healthy relationship.
I get it.
Couple questions that have shown up in the chat box.
Yeah.
Blanca, you kind of touched on the motion with hands and such, but the question is this. Steve does talk with his hands a good bit, as I'm doing right now. Should we be worried that others might think that that is distracting? Could that be perceived as being nervous or distracting if it's in excess?
It is when you're going all over the place and there's no rhyme and reason to your hands, like I'm just doing. I talk with my hands all the time. You can use your hands to, I call it like almost like an emotional highlighter. depending on how you use your hand, you can emphasize certain words that you're saying or points that you're making. And then it's also this anchoring effect for the person who you're talking to. It's like, oh, and again, this is all subconscious. And you can anchor like certain main points. And when you go back to that point, you can use that same hand and it will trigger that thought, that memory that you're trying to leave with them. So it depends on how you're using your hands. I tell people this, I tell my coaching clients this, talk with your hands up, but you have to be careful you're not doing this the entire time because that looks weird, right? So when you're talking, you want to have your palms up and out. And the reason is because that comes across as you're being open. You're being candid, you're being frank, you're not hiding anything. Yeah. Because think about how most people were raised, right? When you had your hands behind your back, what did mom or dad say, honey? What do you got? What you got behind your back? Let me see, right? It's that naturalness if you're hiding something. So that's why hands are really important when you are communicating. That's a great question, Steve. Thank you.
And I like, Blanca, you're right. You hit me with that one statement. You said you want to ace this interview.
Yes.
Clearly using your hands to draw that point forward. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Another question popped up. Another question. How can you look into the camera and look at the person listening to you at the same time?
That's a
I have
fabulous
a thought on that,
question.
but I want to hear Blanca's thought first.
Okay.
When you're talking to somebody, you really want to give them direct eye contact. And you do that by looking into the camera. So there are times like when you're listening, you can listen to them by still looking at the camera, but then your eyes can focus a little bit down. So I'm looking at the camera right now. I'm looking down at Teddy for a second. I see him head nod and I'm refocusing back on the camera. So you can do that. You just need to be careful. You're not going, camera, Teddy, camera, Teddy, camera, Teddy. So it needs to be natural, right? But that's okay to do because we're not robotic.
Yeah. So here's a tip that I try to do.
Okay.
And that is with Zoom. It's easy with Zoom. Zoom lets me do it pretty easily. You take the Zoom window. I wish I could show you my screen. Look at my screen. So there's my Zoom camera, my Zoom I'm looking at. There's Blanca right there. And then there's, Teddy in the middle and Randy on the right. So I have Blanca right there. Now I'm going to put my camera right below the word growth, which is behind it. So I have my camera right there above Blanca's head. And it's pretty much lined up as it was. So I got you as close as I can get you to the camera.
That's a great tip.
Teddy, you've moved me so far away. I am so disappointed in you, Teddy.
Ray, don't feel bad, dude. I mean, we're tight,
I never
buddy.
saw that coming, man. Well,
and you're all the way over there now. I'm not even looking at you anymore.
I'm dying over here. Huh?
But to answer the question, how can you do it? You've got to set your camera up, and you don't need to buy stuff. Just squeeze the Zoom box down so it's right below your camera. And Blanca's gonna know I'm looking at her right now. I'm looking at the camera. So, but at the very least, I have less travel.
Yes,
that's
a great tip. And I did not know that you could play with these Zoom boxes. So I'm curious, maybe later you can tell me how to do that.
Yeah. So just grab the corner and squeeze the whole window down. So good stuff.
Oh.
Really good. Hey, and towards that end, Blanca, let's talk a little bit about, how when we're doing our virtual interviews and we're trying to, ace this conversation, how can we reduce the stuff that's going on around us in our environment, whether it's noise or, the kids running by.
Oh, yeah.
What are your suggestions for making sure the environment suits us the best?
You have to pre-plan. Just like you're going to pre-plan for your interview that you're going to have face-to-face, you have to pre-plan for that virtual interview. So if you have young kids, when are they going to be occupied or entertained? When is your partner going to be home who can make sure that they're entertained, or you're going to have a babysitter or whomever. So you want to plan ahead as much as you can. You want to make sure that your environment, your background is neat. Look, people were like, well, I don't have fancy pictures and I don't have artifacts from my trips and I don't have mahogany desks. You don't have to have all of that. What you do need to have is have a neat environment. That's it. Because the focus needs to be on you, not on the clutter behind you, because you know what's going to happen? You're like, is that a shirt? Oh gosh, are you kidding me? Is that cat throw up behind? No. I mean, that's what's going to happen. People are going to be so distracted. And again, remember I said earlier that people will judge you even though we know we're not supposed to judge. If your environment is a mess, then they're going to say, what kind of employee is this person going to be? Are they disorganized? Is their mind just as disorganized as their home or their office? You have to be very, very, very careful. So again, pre-plan as much as you can. Make sure it's neat, tidy and neat is what you got to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Randy, you have something or?
Well, not so much a question in the chat box, but I've got to ask you, and I've got some other friends that are specialists in certain areas, and even comedians, for example. You are the body language expert. Do you ever feel like you're on stage all the time and people are looking at you to see what is she looking at me and what is she thinking of me? It's like comedians that are expected to be funny all the time. Do you ever feel like you're on stage all the time, or you feel like everybody's just staring at every little piece about you to see if they can figure you out?
Sometimes that happens. The biggest thing with me is that when people realize that I'm a body language expert, this is what happens. They go into what I call the body lockdown. They freeze. They get nervous. Can you read my mind? What am I thinking? They'll tell me one sentence, the sky's blue. Am I lying? I mean, it's fascinating because people, they feel uncomfortable. So they're showing that they're nervous and they're like, what can she really figure out? And look, this is what I tell people. My skills are always on idle. So what that means is you and I could have a great conversation, Randy. You could, I don't know you, this is the first time we're chatting. You could say, hey, you know what? My family owns a Caribbean cruise line. I'd be like, fabulous. But you start talking and talking, but then if things don't start adding up, then this idleness goes, wait a second, it wakes up and goes, what's this happening? He said this, but his body is showing that. Yeah. That's what happens. It's no different like if you go to a physician and you go to a physician because your knee hurts, but then the physician hears you cough funny and weird. The doctor is not going to go only address the knee. The doctor is going to be like, ooh, that cough, let's talk about that cough for a second. You see what I mean? It's on idle. You just can't lock it away or hide it away.
And Randy, you need to tell me more about this cruise line, dude.
Well, we got into trouble last week talking about all your antique cars that you and Jay Leno have stashed away. So I know not to go there anymore. I just let's just leave that unsaid. How's that?
All right. So Blanca, here's another one. Here's another idea, and that is, how can we make sure that the way we physically present ourselves with our body language, or the way we look, the way we use our hands and the way we stand, how can that impact the way that other person feels about our confidence?
Oh, great question. All right, I'm just going to show you.
Did I sound confident when I said that?
You did, but you were emphasizing the word confidence because that's your key word right there that you want everyone to listen to, right?
Yes,
so here's the deal. So I'm looking at the camera right now. My shoulders are back. This sends one message. If I do this, you see the difference? Yeah. My head's down, right? My shoulders are rounded. But then if all I do is straighten my shoulders and lift my head a little, minute, 2 little movements, but they make such a huge impact. And also your voice. Go ahead.
I was going to offer, Randy can tell you, and we have some recruiter friends on here. I guarantee you that I'm not the only person who's interviewed someone who sits like this.
Yes.
And does not present themselves as a confident. Well, then there's that too, Randy. So
right. Oh yeah, like they're bored or disinterested. People don't smile in business, and I don't know why. So no, I'm not making this generalization that I'm saying every single person in business doesn't smile. But what I'm saying, particularly for interviews, when you're nervous and you're trying to make a good impression, you don't smile. You have to smile. Again, listen to what I said earlier. Life is about relationships, period.
Yeah.
One way to start a relationship is with a hello and a smile. That's not the first time you've ever heard that. I know, I think it might be a commercial, I don't know. However, the point is you do need to smile. When you smile, what? Someone's gonna smile back and makes them appear warm and happy, nice, someone you wanna be around. Because if I do this, no one's gonna wanna hang out with me. They're gonna be like, what is her problem? And guys, can you get a different guest? Because she's they're not going to be impressed with that. So you do have to smile from time to time, but you have to be relaxed. Because again, with smiles, people can do this, right? That fake smile.
not
No,
authentic.
it needs to come from a good place. It needs to come because you're really happy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Randy?
I hear about people that smile but not with their eyes, and that they just go.
Yes. Yes. And yes,
It's
Randy.
kinda-
Some people do that like in pictures. And some people, a lot of people try to slow down that aging process, right? So what might that mean? Some people might choose to get Botox. When that happens, it's going to, a lot of the common places are right here with the crow's feet, because when you smile, it wrinkles up. So that muscle could be paralyzed, which means it's not going to contract. The same with forehead muscles. So you might get some people who are trying to give you a very genuine smile, but they can't because all this is paralyzed because of the Botox. And so what you'll do is you'll see it here in the mouth only.
Slow down the aging process. I don't understand why people would want to do that. I don't have that problem. Randy, you got any questions out there, buddy?
Just kind of an off the wall one, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a joke question, really. Is should we dress up for virtual interviews?
Yes.
When I first read it, I didn't see the word up.
Yes.
Should we dress for interview? And I'm thinking, well, at least from the waist up, maybe. But yeah. So
Be careful with that, because even from the waist down, we've seen some videos of people who you can see the boxer shorts.
Yeah.
And they don't realize, depending on how they have their camera leveled, how far down it goes. But yes, you want to dress for the job that you want.
Yeah.
Even that means if you're more dressed than the interviewer, remember, you're in the spotlight. This is your time to shine to that hiring manager, to that interviewer. So what kind of dress does that job require? Make sure that you're wearing it, that it's pressed, that it looks neat. I'll give you some tips. I'm very into monochromatic, although I'm not today. Normally, when you see me on camera, I have one solid color on. It doesn't, when you do that, it's not busy. Sometimes different prints and patterns can come across. They don't transfer well through video, and it looks dizzying. It's not complimentary.
And but there's another part of that dressing for the role too, Blanca, and that is that if you dress based on the way you want to be perceived,
Yes.
not only is that camera going to show that, but you're going to feel it.
Absolutely. There's research to support what you're saying, Teddy.
Say it again.
There's research to support your statement, what you're saying.
There's personal research. I mean, I feel it. I would wager you've experienced it yourself. And, you know, you can tell when someone really doesn't have the right mindset, because they often don't dress as if they have the right mindset.
Yes. And then let me add to that, when they're not comfortable wearing what they're wearing, if your clothes too tight, what's going to happen? You might pull on it. You might tug on it. Let's say you forgot a belt. You might be adjusting your slacks. So if you don't feel comfortable, that's going to come across. And you're right. And I'm going to take this from professional to personal just a second. Think about summertime and when people really feeling it. They've worked out, they're feeling great. And so they're showing something that accentuates their body. Okay. They're more confident in that, right? And then you see people who don't feel as confident. What happens? They're doing this, they're hiding behind a table or a chair instead of really owning it. And so that just speaks to your point that you're making, that you'll actually feel it as well.
Yeah, owning it. Well, Randy, I thought there was another question that came up.
Well, talking about could you fake your body language? For example, not having a closing posture when you don't want to talk to someone. I mean, I could talk like this and it shows that I'm open. Yeah, I could sort of fake it.
Yeah.
Where I'd really prefer to just be like this and say, go away. But I can sort of fake it like this to where I look to be open and approachable. I hope that's kind of the gist of the question, but let's go with that. Let's say it is. Can I fake it? How long can I fake this before I give myself away?
It depends on how perceptive the other person is.
Yeah.
Because you're looking for congruency. So congruency means you want to make sure that the different body language gestures that you're showing line up. So if you're happy, all your body language gestures should show happiness. So if I try to do this, but then I'm going like this, that's that discongruency. That's a disconnect. Also with your words and your body language. So if your body language is projecting that you're mad, right? But what you're saying, really suggesting that you're scared, people are going to pick up on that. And people do this again subconsciously. If you think about, we have the sixth sense. So if you think about people that you've met before and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've known you for a million years. You're my, kindred spirit. And other people are like, I can't get away from that person fast enough. I don't know what it is about them. They just rub me wrong.
Wait, I need to do this, Randy. I'm pointing at you, not Blanca.
But you have that sixth sense for a reason. It's just like, it's a way to protect yourself. So that's ingrained, it's instinctual, it's innate. And it's no different with body language. Sometimes you just don't go, oh, okay, well, they're blinking their eyes too much and their shoulder is just turned just a fraction. You don't get that level of detail consciously. It's you get that feeling. And so someone is going to get that feeling that something is off talking to you. Yeah. You're trying to be something that you're not, or present something that you're not.
Teddy, we're about halfway through, so you'll want to get that ready.
Yeah. I appreciate everybody showing up. Blanca, thank you very much for joining us today. This show is sponsored in part by Brookmead Holdings. We're really appreciative of them sponsoring us and helping us to put this on. And Brookmeads is all about career coaching, professional development, outplacement organization to help individuals who want to transition or have to transition to another role. So if you're looking for help, or someone who's looking for help in their career, then give Brookmead Holdings a call, 336-814-8910. And again, we're very appreciative of Brookmead's helping us and sponsoring this show. So, and again, we have Blanca Cobb, body length. Randy, did I pull that off?
You did.
Blanca,
I'm going to double your pay.
This is practice.
Yeah.
Blanca Cobb, body language expert, internationally known. And I know some of the, Blanca, I remember back in, oh my God, was it 2012? John Edwards, that's where I met you. That's where I met you as a body language expert. Mm-hmm. I remember that interview. So we won't go over it, but Randy, any other questions we have before we go on?
Yeah, it looks like we do. Tell us some of the key body language actions in response to answers to the interviewer's question. So I'll say that again. Tell us some of the key body language actions in response to answers to the interviewer's question. I'm not really sure. That's kind of confusing to me. Is that making sense to you guys?
I can go in a direction with that. Yeah. When you're comfortable with the question and you know how to answer it, that's super easy. You're going to feel very comfortable and confident. It's going to show. It's when you're asked a question that you're not sure how to answer. Tell me about your last job. And you're like, I hated it because X, Y, and Z. So if you feel any angst about it and you haven't pre-planned and thought through what your answer might be for that possible question, you could show it. You could pull back. You could cringe slightly. Your eyes might look down. And then that's going to let the interviewer know, ooh, something's up. Or if you don't have an answer, it doesn't necessarily have to be that question. Let's say they stumped you. They asked you something you're not really sure, and you feel like you're on the spot. So all of a sudden you're starting to feel hot and your body temperature is increasing and you're starting to sweat. It's those types of things when you're not sure or when you're not comfortable that's going to give that negative body language. So when you're nervous, I have a couple tips. When you're nervous, and particularly when you're virtual, no one's going to be able to see your feet more than likely. Okay. So curl up your toes. Everybody do this right now. Curl up your toes really, really tight for just 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and let them go. Notice that relaxation once you let go of your toes. It's just a way to get rid of some excess energy, and it will help you calm down just a little. And then also if they ask you something, it is okay to say, that's a great question. Give me a second to think about it. You want to have that transparency. I believe in this level of transparency, and they're going to appreciate that, because you have to think about it this way. Just because you're asked something or you're confronted with a situation or a problem, you may not have the answer immediately, and that's okay, but it's your effort. It's the time that you're taking to think it through. It's that creativity. That speaks more than you just having an answer right off the cuff, and then it's a crazy answer.
Yeah, and Steve did a follow-up to his question that you just saying. He says, no, he said, this is when you as the interviewee answer a question and the interviewer responds with certain body language.
Oh, you mean like whether they like the answer or not like the answer?
I suppose. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you can get a sense when someone might lean in a little, or they might be very thoughtful. They might nod their head. So notice I'm nodding my head, but I have a little bit of furrow in between my eyebrows right there. That could be, I'm hearing you, I'm not quite sure. If they smile, they relax, or they go, this is like, okay, you're saying something that I haven't thought of, or great answer, or nice. So it depends on what's happening. Some people will lean in just a little. When you're leaning in, that shows interest. When you pull back, a lot of times that means disengagement. So perhaps they don't like the answer. They're not sure of the answer. It could also be if someone pulls back that they're thinking. It'd be like, oh, well, I've thought about that. Or, So if they're grabbing their chin like this, they might be thinking about it. So it's those types of things, really what you can categorize more of the positive and then more of the negative. But just because you see the negative, do not automatically assume that it means something bad. It really could be a moment that they're thinking. And then you'll get more sense as a conversation goes on. You can listen to tone of voice. Tone of voice tells you a lot. People don't realize about tone of voice. When you're nervous, a lot of times your voice will get higher and faster. When you're more calm and relaxed, it's going to be more as you typically talk. You'll be at a slower pace. And the same with the interviewer. Yeah.
And you got to, I often say this, watch how often they look at the door. If you're, do they look around like they're looking for an exit? Do they look at their watch? Do they fiddle with their cell phone? Virtually you don't get all the cues, but you can get some of them. If they're not looking at you or at the screen as if they're looking at you and they're looking around, you're losing your audience.
Yeah, that happens on my first dates. That invariably that happens. So I hear you, Teddy.
But I've told you repeatedly how to do this, Randy, and you just won't listen to me.
I know it. I know. We have a lot of questions. Let's grab another.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sean says, speaking of being nervous, is it okay for you to bring that up? Especially if they can detect that you are. Is it okay to say, I'm really nervous?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I think it goes along with what I was just saying a few minutes ago about being transparent.
Yeah.
But it's also how you convey that you're nervous. So if you make a big production of it where you're losing control of yourself, that's totally different than you're like, I'm a little nervous. You see the difference? I mean, there's a qualitative difference there. So yeah, just saying it, that's not a problem at all.
Blow it out of proportion, they may ask you to go home or turn the camera.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And towards that end, I get this a lot, and where I get people who are they're bashful. Maybe I'll use the word just simply camera shy. I've got a lot of people who say this, Teddy, I'm just not comfortable having a conversation with someone. Do you have any suggestions about how you can help yourself overcome that, Blanca? A little bit different with your thoughts.
You mean being more shy or reserved around other people?
No, how to overcome that. Yes.
Okay. Although it might be difficult right now since we're in COVID and we have face mask wearing and being 6 feet apart, it's really putting yourself in a position where you are more sociable with others. And people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, really? That sounds so simplistic, because it can be really simplistic sometimes. You don't need to have a convoluted answer to problems. So even though we're doing a lot of video right now and we're doing a lot of self-isolation, I would encourage you to start talking to more people via video chat, whether it's family, it's friends, it's whomever. Do it in a more relaxed environment and you get used to it. It's just like if you learn a new skill, like riding a bike, you get nervous, but the more practice, what happens? You get better and you get better. The same with using a foreign language. You start speaking and you get more comfortable and comfortable. It is no different on a video camera. The more you do it, the more you're going to be comfortable and the less you're going to be self-conscious.
Randy, I've got my story for when we're done, dude.
I don't, but I never do up until it just kind of comes out. Another question that was in the chat here is, sometimes you get in an interview scenario and you just cannot get in a word edgewise. And how much control should you have over the conversation? Sometimes I feel like I can't get a word in. How could I get a word in when that person won't stop? Is there a way to
oh my gosh, that's an excellent question. And that puts you in a bit of a pickle, right? Because they're the interviewer. They're the person with the power of whether they're going to hire you or not. So
Totally.
definitely maintain respect, which of course you would. But when they stop, you could say, great point you bring up, and I'd like to add. So you don't want to interrupt them, but let them know there's something you would like to say. What happens a lot of times is people get frustrated and they're right, and they don't realize how they're coming across. Or if they're talking and you don't want to interrupt them, you can put your hand up like this. Because think about when you were in school and you had to get the teacher's attention. You may not raise your hand like this, right? But you can put your finger up, and then that's a visual cue to them. Oh, okay. He wants to say something. She wants to say something. Hopefully they will pick up on nonverbal cues. And if they don't, that probably tells you something about them that it may not be a good match for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent points. There is another comment, and then I know we're getting shorter on time. Look at.
Oh no, we're just getting started.
So this dealt with somebody that kind of leans back like that. If they pull back, perhaps the suggestion is follow up with, does that answer your question, or can I clarify my answer for you? Is it okay for you now to say, hey, how did I do? Did that address your question?
Except not how did I do, because you don't want that type of evaluation. However, you could say something like, did that resonate with you? Or what do you think about what I just said? What did you think about what I just said? Leaves it very broad. It's not yes or no, so it's not a closed-end question. Mm-hmm. And then this gives them the opportunity to really share what they're thinking about what you said. And then what I like about that is that once you hear what they have to say, that tells you the direction you need to take the conversation next. Yeah. Whether it's more clarifying or whether you need to expand on it, or whether if it's going in a good direction or a bad direction. Yeah.
Another question.
Or just simply a different direction than what you thought it was going to go. It may not be good or bad. It just could be different.
That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Teddy.
One other question on here. I think we've got showing passion. Some people are just boring. Let's face it. It's a big world, and some people that just to get beyond this is like pulling teeth, and it's just like this. Sure. And now they get into a nervous situation. They go into more of a shell, and now they're just like this. Is there any way to kind of inject passion when you're monotone and laid back? How can you amp it up without being phony? Well, there's that, Teddy. How do we become more animated, more gregarious, more engaging? Because it's sort of like a first date. It really is. And if I don't get a good vibe from you, you could be very skilled, but quite frankly, if I don't feel good about you, I may just overlook you in favor of somebody else, maybe.
Exactly. That's a good point. I say you start practice. If you know this about yourself, you start practicing off camera before you even get on camera. Videotape yourself talking, having a conversation. Do your own interview, asking yourself questions and answering them on camera, and listen to yourself. And then think about, what is it about the job that excites you? What is it about your skills and your accomplishments that excites you, that you want to be able to share? And if you focus on those types of things, then naturally, if you feel good about it, you're going to be more excited and more passionate. And don't be afraid to use your voice. I'm sure if I would go back and listen to our conversation today, you're going to hear a lot of inflections in my voice, because we're not monotone. We have the ups and downs of a conversation, and you should be able to project that, because it makes you seem like a fun, multi-dimensional person. Nobody wants to hang out or be with somebody who is boring. It's not fun. And someone might go, well, should work be fun? And I say, yes, you should be able to enjoy work and the people that you're around.
And good point, Blanca. If I would have invited you to come in here and talk about paint chips, you would not have the same level of energy and excitement in this conversation. And by the way, neither would I. Randy may, on the other hand, love talking about paint chips.
I quit eating those when I was a kid, Teddy.
Blanca, this is absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate it. Can you take everything we just said and just summarize just a few bullet points about your body language in the context of a virtual interview that we can wrap this up in a simple statement?
Okay, that's going to be tough, but let me give it a try. Let me give it a try.
Big bullet points.
The more comfortable you are, the more relaxed your body language is going to be with the interviewer. And by relaxed, I mean your tone of voice, not the shakiness. You're not going to see a lot of tension in the face and the shoulders and the hands and the jaw. And you're going to be able to smile. And that's going to come across as you're a real person, an authentic person, and somebody who they're going to want to be around. Jobs aren't only about your skills, it's about you as a person and how you fit into a company culture.
Got it. I got it. The two words I heard, I know a bunch of words I'm going to talk about in a minute, but I heard you say be comfortable, and that's your responsibility to be that way. And then smile.
Yes.
Those are huge. Blanca, thank you very much for joining us today. Randy, I've got a story, and Blanca, you can feel free to interject in any way.
Okay.
We end this with, I have a story, Randy has a story, and sometimes I have to poke Randy to get him to think of stories. And then we introduce our next guest. So here's what I heard from you, Blanca. I heard two words very deliberately. If you want to present yourself better in your body language, as well as your tone of voice, as well as the tactical use of cameras and, the Zoom thing, I threw out this idea of squeeze it up so it's up top there. If you want to do a better job of virtual interviewing, you have to do two things. Number one, prepare. Prepare means you need to know enough about that organization, you need to know enough about that person, and you need to know as much as you can possibly know about that person before, or people, as much as you can, know as much about that role as you can. And prepare also means, and I'm being satirical here with this analogy, lock your wife in the closet so she doesn't come barging out and ask you for a biscuit, or take the dog outside and give it to the neighbor, whatever you need to do to keep the environment, so the environment works best for you. And you don't need to spend $1 million on a showroom, but maybe you just, clean up a little bit, or maybe you put the camera in a different direction so that, that what they see behind you is not distracting or diminishing of your brand. That's prepare. The second thing I heard you say that I think is critical for anyone who is, in interviewing, I think in life, and whether it's virtual interviewing or in real life interviewing, that is practice. But this is not hard to do. I mean, sit down in front of a camera is what I used to tell people back before we got, so wait a minute, I said it differently, Randy. I said, sit down in front of a mirror. We used to say, sit down in front of a mirror, stand in front of a mirror and interview so you can see what you're looking like. Well, you don't need to do that today, because what you can do today, every one of you on here has Zoom. So if you have Zoom, free Zoom, you don't need to pay for it. Create a meeting in Zoom, turn on your camera and do your interview, talk to the camera, record it. You got a record button. You can do a 40-minute interview for free. And do a 40-minute interview, have your questions that you're going to ask yourself and answer them, then save that off on your computer and watch it. Just watch it. By the way, you will laugh and you will cry. Where you laugh at yourself, then do that and be glorious that you can laugh. Where you cry, you do this. What do I need to do differently next time? Because you can't just look at it and go, I'm stupid, which are my words to me, not to anyone else. You can't do that. You've got to watch yourself when you practice, and then you've got to ask yourself this: what can I do to make it better next time? Prepare and practice. I think that's critical, and for you to present yourself the best way you can so you can ace this interview every single time. Randy, do you have a thought?
I'll think of one as I'm thinking of it. I'm an old radio jock. Got out of college in a recession. I have a nice voice. Had a friend who was in radio, helped me get a part-time gig at a station. Did some nightclub DJing. So with radio, and again, the old joke, you have a face for radio. All they hear is your voice, and so I'm very much in tune to the inflection and tone of voice and the cadence and everything you talked about, Blanca. So that was key. But I'll tell you, there was this aha moment when I decided to leave radio. I hired a firm that does much like I do now, what I'll call, back in the day, was called retail or private outplacement. And part of their coaching was, back in the day, they had a video camera the size of, my file cabinet over here. And it was the very first time in my life that I was able to see myself being interviewed. And to Teddy's point, it was, I can't believe I can't believe I did that. I wouldn't hire me. But it was it's one thing to have somebody tell you things, but when you can see or hear yourself. That's why I do a lot of work on TV as well. And I'm always curious to watch the segments after I've done those, for everything from the body language to how many stutters I throw in there to my inflection and all of those things, because I'm aware of that. And I try to carry that on to my clients when I prep them for interviews. A good example, and especially when you deal with accountants and engineers and people who are typically a little more reserved. They're precise, they're measured in their speech pattern because they are accurate, and they're not the sales and marketing self-promotion kind of guy. And so sometimes they know they need to up their game in terms of the personality piece, but they're not sure how to do that. And what I'll do is I'll stop and just kind of change the topic. And that's something, Blanca, you mentioned earlier. Ask them about their hobbies. What do they do for fun? And you know what? You see their eyes actually genuine grins, and they light up. And I say, stop. That's what you need to do now, because you know yourself better than anybody. You know you're good at what you do. So let that show through. Let that confidence show through. And you don't have to be John Madden with hands like this, and it's actually bad. But I think we know ourselves, and to Teddy's point, if we've done our homework, we know the company, and we go in prepared. Yeah. And you know what? Nobody's going to be perfect. And Teddy, you've said this many times, nobody has ever died from networking. Nobody has ever died from that whole fear and hesitancy of, oh no, I'm going to be exposed. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. We're human. And I think people can relate to that. We're not looking to hire a robot. We want to hire somebody who has a little bit of zip to them and who can engage. And the fact that they may have the hard skills, they've got to have that. But if you can bring some of that personality to the game, and again, Teddy's point about videoing yourself and see what they see when they talk to you. And it may shock you. It also may give you confidence, knowing that you're doing the best that you can, and you can brush up your game in certain areas. So I'll kind of leave it at that. But again,
hang on, buddy.
Action piece. Yeah. What you
got? Before we talk about our next special guest.
Yeah.
So I need you to be ready for that. Blanca has offered to be even more helpful.
Okay.
Do you want to share, Blanca, or you want?
Sure, I'm happy to share.
It's your offer, dear.
Yeah, so for your audience, what I'm willing to do, if you have an interview coming up or you're not sure how you come across on camera, I will review a video anywhere between 1 to 2 minutes of you, and I'll give you 3 pointers. Yeah. So a video of yourself, perhaps practicing. Sometimes interviewers now are wanting a video for you to introduce yourself first. And if you want to send it to me, I'll give you some feedback. I'll give you 3 pointers, and you can send it to me at blanca@blancacobb.com. Yeah. Again, blanca@blancacobb.com.
And I'll put that email address in the show notes that go out. So it'll hit you. It'll hit you too. But here, Blanca, if I may offer to this, because this is a powerful offer. This is absolutely can be really impactful for you. So what I would encourage you to do not whip your freaking cell phone out and do a selfie video and go, Blanca, what do you think of this? That would be a total waste of your time and disrespectful to the offer and Blanca. Instead, prepare and practice.
then record up to a 2-minute long video. Don't do a 1 minute, do up to a 2-minute long video, and then share that with Blanca, and it'll be far more meaningful for you. So
There you go.
There is a lot to this whole body language. And I talk about it frequently with clients and when I get to give talks, because I think too many people are just too tied up in, I need a good resume. And if only I could get the interview, I know I could land the job because I have the hard skills to get it done. And what is it? 55% of interpersonal communication roughly is body language, 38% is your tone of voice, and only about 7% the actual words. So yes,
No.
they may be
70%.
Am I not?
Sorry, Randy. No, that is a misquoted study.
Okay. Well,
It's a misquoted study. So it depends on the research study,
Okay.
but I would say anywhere from like 50 to 70%. Again, it depends on the research study. Words are impactful. Absolutely. However, people just don't pick up on the nuances of body language, how it either can support your message or take away from that message.
So still the point though is that it's more than just saying the right words and having the right hard skills, the soft skills, that interpersonal communication, that's pretty important. And so people focus in on that, whether consciously or subconsciously. And I think that plays into their hiring decisions. And I know you've talked about that. So all good. Hey, next week we have a couple of guests, and we have Lou Everett and Sherry McManus of the Lou Everett Group. They're out of Raleigh. And they're going to talk about, among other things, we're dealing with 5 generations in the workplace right now. And this is the first time in history we've had that. A lot of diversity. So diversity is more than gender and necessarily race and other factors. It's also age and the generational differences. And they'll also get into leadership and how could, for example, a younger person effectively lead perhaps older workers or vice versa. And so it's how we relate to each other, some of the stereotypical, I guess, factors that are in play here with the different generations. So understanding how to play well together, we'll cover that next week. And as always, if you have ideas for topics or ideas for a speaker, then let us know. And I know, Teddy, you're going to wrap things up here and mention our sponsor and anything else that we might need to be aware of before we sign off today.
Yeah. Good stuff, buddy. Again, Blanca, thank you very much for showing up today and for sharing. Really appreciate it. And so, again, we're grateful for our sponsor, Brookmead Holdings. Good people. We've known them for years. They really care about helping individuals in their job search, coaching, and professional development work. Hunt them down if you're looking for help. Brookmead Holdings. They're on Facebook, and their phone number is 336-814-8910. And again, we're grateful for the support. Blanca, thanks again for showing up. Really appreciate it. I got some great ideas that I'm going to use that you helped me. Maybe I'm going to turn my standing desk back on. Good. And it's 1 o'clock. We did well to nail it, and we did well to wrap up. So we'll see everybody next week. Take care.
Thank you. See you next